welcome to Season 5, Episode 16 of History's Greatest Idiots, the show where we take you back through all of human history and give you examples of colossal, enormous mistakes made by completely stupid and often great people, so you can learn lessons from their mistakes and never repeat them again. But who are we kidding? We're humans. We like making mistakes. And today's dude... there is a fine line between one of the most influential people of all time and colossal arsehole.
Okay.
So, yeah, I've been... honestly, before we get on these podcast recordings, me and Derek talk for like 30 minutes, 45 minutes, an hour, generally like putting the world to rights a little bit. And I've been teasing this for so long. I don't know if you've got a full idea. I think you might have some idea, but I can't wait to show you. Anyway, joining me as ever is my amazing co-host and dear friend Derek. Derek, how are you, my man?
I'm doing good. I'm doing amazing.
Yes.
How are you?
I'm good. I'm feeling a little bit better than I was yesterday. I told Derek at the time I was kind of delirious while writing this script, so I hope it makes sense and it's funny and it's not just like jumble of words that might be like my shopping list or something like that. So, but yeah, I'm doing good. I found out some stuff in my professional life today that made me extremely frustrated. So I got in my fucking car and drove to the woods and walked around a forest for about 2 hours. That's an option in the UK because we don't have bears or snakes or wolves or anything that are going to fucking eat us.
You don't?
So, no, nothing like that. The closest thing we have is a squirrel, and they can be kind of vicious, but that's about as dangerous as it gets. And those fucking squirrels are American, so...
those dick American squirrels.
I know. If only we had squirrel ice over in the UK, they could just be fucking knocking down trees and just deporting squirrels. I mean, they put them in cages. It's halfway there. I know, it's so dark. Sorry, I went there. I shouldn't have done that. That was a terrible joke. Sorry. Anyway, so swift transition onto cheerier news. Thank you so much to our amazing, wonderful patrons whose financial support help make us ever so slightly more secure occasionally and give us an opportunity to buy things in life at a time when finances for everyone are stretched so thin. So thank you all so much for your financial support, specifically Jesse Christ, Kimberly, Andrew Zavara, Dilly Bob, Silent Crisis, Carrion, Suzanne, and Toasterzoid. Thank you all so much for providing us with the financial support you do. And if you would like to join them in paying us as little as $3 a month, you can go to patreon.com/History's Greatest Idiots, where you'll get access to behind-the-scenes footage from our life and our holidays, including my recent trip to Liverpool for a wedding. And Liverpool's a beautiful city. I took some random pictures, mostly not of the city, but of the crazy shit I saw there. You'll also get exclusive monthly recordings, which we'll be doing next weekend. You'll get gifts for joining. You'll get an annual gift as well. And just a bunch of random scripts from the episodes themselves. So if you'd like to do that and sling us a little bit of cash, then go over there. It's only $3 a month to join. And also, if you'd like to follow us on Instagram, where you'll see snippets from our show and random stupid memes that I cook up when I'm usually in pain. It distracts from the pain. It's very useful. It sounds like a Nine Inch Nails song. That one.
It could be.
Focus on the memes. And yeah, that's at History's Greatest Idiots over on Instagram. And you can find all of our videos live and in maximum 1080p brilliance over on YouTube and on Spotify now, where people occasionally leave us very strange comments about not enjoying our content, which is hilarious.
I like all the comments. I
love them.
I don't read the comments.
No, it's okay. Also, yeah, I delete the ones I don't like. So,
so we do what we want.
Yeah, because it's our fucking show. If you're going to be a dick, then we're going to kick you out. So we're only a positive atmosphere here now. So
yeah,
kicking out the dicks, which is that's not the kicking out the jam song.
I can stay though, right?
Sorry,
I can stay though, right?
Oh no! Well, this is you are the least dickish person attached to this product, dude. You are the shining beacon of gloriousness over my darkness. Honestly, yeah. Don't ever doubt that. You are better than you give yourself credit for.
Okay.
Yeah. Just take the compliment.
Yes, sir.
Chew it down. Swallow that. So,
Sorry, I
today's
distracted you.
No. Listen, this is what the podcast's for. I like the distractions. This is part of the fun. So this week, we've had a bunch of really cool suggestions from people recently. I've had a bunch of, over the last couple of months, I've had some really interesting suggestions, and I think I'll probably get to a lot of them. This person was it wasn't last minute. I've been thinking about covering them for a while, but I had a bunch of stuff going on in my head around, like I told you about the exploitation thing, and I kind of couldn't focus, and I couldn't really find the right details that I wanted to in the moment that I was doing the writing to cover the people that other people have suggested. I will get to them, but the person I'm talking about today is almost certainly the most influential person we've ever covered in this podcast. Like, that's other than other than Thatcher, who obviously had a huge influence on. She was like one of the twin pillars of neoliberalism that shaped the world over the last 45 years, her and Reagan. Without those two, we don't have the world that we live in now, and unfortunately we had them. So we're now living in this hellscape.
Here we are.
Yeah, here we are. Thanks, guys. But the person we're covering today, I think, dwarfs her influence significantly. You'll understand when I say their name. One of the most influential person in human history, probably the biggest name we've ever covered on this podcast, and it was difficult for me to fit this into 5,000 words, which I did while I was delirious with illness, but I thought, fuck it. I'm ill. Let's write 5,000 words on Karl Marx.
Okay.
Yeah. We're covering the father of communism.
Very well, then. Here we go.
Here we go. Let's fucking go for it. This may potentially upset some of our... There's also another reason we're covering this. I also, hi to the new person who's listening to this. They may have already unsubscribed. I noticed we had a couple of unsubscribers recently, and the person I was talking to over this last weekend, who I met at the wedding, said that they were a big fan of history, and they were going to listen to our podcast. And I noticed we had a bunch of people who subscribed and then immediately unsubscribed. So I was like, oh, I think maybe my politics may not have aligned particularly with their worldview. And part of that was kind of the reason I wanted to cover someone like this, because we have been kind of criticized in the past for not covering more left-leaning people, even though we covered Nicolae Ceausescu, who was a communist dictator, and the liberal MP in the UK who tried to have his gay lover murdered.
Yes. Yep.
So, and a Welsh politician who definitely is not right-wing, although he is a Tory. We've covered liberal people in the past. The problem is that history is littered with, it's controlled mostly by the people we cover, which is older white dudes. Because they control history, they feature heavily in it, and also feature heavily with some of the most hilarious and stupid mistakes, hence why they're covered so much in this podcast.
Yes.
But I thought Karl Marx, kind of the opposite of what people expect us to cover, because they consider us a left-leaning podcast. I'm left-leaning, but I go where the fucking stupidity is. So if that's in a left-leaning person, then we'll cover them. But oftentimes, it's less juicy than the stupid shit right-wingers are doing. But Karl Marx, let's get to it. The man who wrote about the exploitation of workers while simultaneously exploiting his own family's bank accounts, friends' generosity, and pretty much anyone else who would give him a dime. Let's start with some context. If you've ever had that friend who talks endlessly about overthrowing the system while borrowing money they'll definitely pay back next week, congratulations. You've met the Gen X, Millennial, Gen Z version of Karl Marx. That's exactly what this motherfucker did. Except your friend probably hasn't written works that would inspire revolutions across the globe and change the course of human history. So there's that slight difference.
Right.
Well, they might just be a fucking mooch.
They just haven't gotten around to it yet.
No, and actually Marx nearly didn't. So he was perpetually like, I'll write it next week. I'm fucking tired. So before the angry letters start pouring in from people calling us a sellout, Yes, Marx is undeniably one of the most influential people in human history. His critique of capitalism and vision of class struggle has shaped everything from economic theory to political movements. But like many great thinkers, there was a cavernous gap between his world-changing ideas and his ability to handle basic life responsibilities. I mean, like fucking dressing himself level of... He was practically a toddler, only with an incredible genius IQ.
Hey, man, that stuff is hard.
It can be if you're perpetually drunk as well, which he was. So we'll get to that.
That stuff is hard.
That is also hard, not being drunk all the time. Thinking of him as a philosophical equivalent of a brilliant chef who can create Michelin star meals, but somehow burns toast and fucking leaves the gas on and also forgets to pay the gas bill. Like, that's Karl Marx, basically.
Okay.
Is that you've got this person, and actually it's interesting. It reminds me, interestingly, because my grandfather, my Welsh grandfather, was a Marxist scholar, and he was like a political economics lecturer, and he was kind of a genius with maths. He would listen to statements being put out by the government, like about the rise in taxes and stuff, and immediately tell you how much like the new cost of a pint of milk would be, or like the new cost of fuel would be, and stuff like that. But he would like forget his work when he was leaving for work and have to come back for it, and then like leave his lunch behind and have to come back for that as well. So
does that not sound ADHD?
Yeah. Back when, we didn't really have that definition in the 60s.
Right.
So, like, people weren't diagnosed with ADHD, but that's effectively what that is. And it would be really interesting if you could go back and diagnose Karl Marx, because I think there's a plethora. I think this dude was definitely on the spectrum. And you can judge that based on what I'm about to tell you. Join us, though, as we go through this 19th century Europe, as we explore how one chronically broke, perpetually ill, and often unwashed German philosopher managed to change the world while barely being able to support his own fucking family. This is Karl Marx, the revolutionary philosopher, or history's greatest idiot, depending on your point of view on what he does. I'm going to start with part one, which is his early life and the making of a revolutionary. Karl Heinrich Marx was born on May the 5th, 1818, in Trier, Prussia, which is now part of Germany. So think of Prussia as Germany's even more snooty aunt. That's
okay.
Fancier clothes, very regal, empiric, and they're like, Germany. They're like fucking poor man's version of us, basically, which is amazing when you think about the development of Germany after Prussia disappeared. So Karl Marx was born too, because you think, oh my God, the father of communism? Wow, he must have come from grinding poverty. No, he was born in a comfortable middle-class family.
Okay.
Yeah, a bit of a surprise, this. When I say comfortable, I mean really comfortable. His father, Heinrich, was a very successful lawyer who owned several vineyards.
Well, that seems like it would kind of make sense, though.
Yeah, he was a learned gentleman to a definite extent, Karl Marx, but his dad set him off on a very easy path in life. So right off the bat, the first irony is that the father of communist theory grew up in what can only be described as bourgeois comfort.
You would think, okay, now he's thinking, well, everybody should have this.
Exactly. And actually, he's right. Everyone should fucking be comfortable in their life. No one should be fucked around with by the system. But here we go. And also, here's our second twist. Karl Marx was Jewish. Born Jewish, but converted to Lutheranism in 1816, or his father did. Why? Well, it wasn't a profound spiritual awakening. It was because Prussia, and it's a theme that continues throughout history, had passed laws barring Jews from practicing law.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, that seems anti-Semitic.
It definitely does seem anti-Semitic, and actually compared to what was going on in Russia at the time, where Jews couldn't do anything and were being kicked out of the country by Nicholas I, the second to last Tsar, Prussia was actually quite light, but practicing Jews couldn't be practicing lawyers as well. So the family converted to Lutheranism, and basically his choice was convert or lose your career. So he decided to convert. Nothing like a little religious conversion for career development there. That's exactly what Tom Cruise did.
Yeah, it was, wasn't it?
I'll go over to this church and my career's going to take off again. So this practical approach to life's problems was ironically not a trait he passed on to his son. Young Karl was actually baptized at age 6 along with his siblings. So the great critic of religion and the author of the phrase, "religion is the opium of the masses," started his life as a converted Lutheran.
Okay.
That's his second ironic thing. This fucking thing is laden with irony and hypocrisy, so strap yourselves in. It's kind of like finding out Gordon Ramsay was raised in the wilderness, like eating bugs and drinking rainwater.
That would make all the sense.
It would, actually, yeah. Suddenly he wants to eat all of the best food instead of bugs and
tired of this shit.
My God, I'm going to enter society, Father. You can't keep me living in the woods forever. Karl attended Friedrich Wilhelm Gymnasium in Trier, which sounds fancy and like a gym, but it's not a gym, it's a high school. It's a super basic high school. So,
okay.
Yeah, gymnasium is a byword for school in some parts of the 19th century world. So, yeah, it's a strange thing. Also, like salons were you hear salon, you think, oh, I'm going to go and get my hair done in a fancy swanky place or whatever. But actually, salons were like hotbeds of revolutionary talk where people would drink and have coffee and stuff like that. So
right,
yeah.
And the only reason I know that is because of the Big Bang Theory.
Yes,
yeah.
It's interesting. Yeah, that's God. That show actually taught us more than we realized.
Yeah.
So his headmaster, Hugo Wattenbach, was a liberal humanist who employed teachers with progressive ideas, which is actually, like, he's being exposed to this very early on. So in 1832, the school was raided by the local hardline police, who discovered seditious literature being distributed amongst students. So basically stuff that the Prussian government didn't like. Peanuts comics, Archie, maybe a little Dilbert thrown in there too. I'm being facetious. It's kind of, I can just imagine Karl Marx, because he loved this shit. He loved, like, oh my God, there's a different way, and he was like super into it from the start. I can just imagine him hiding revolutionary pamphlets in his fucking desk, going, "Oh, it's just animal porn. It's just don't look, it's animal porn. That's all it is. I swear, it's only animal porn." At 17, Marx headed off to the University of Bonn to study law, not because he wanted to, mind you. That's because Daddy told him he had to go and do that. Heinrich thought law was a practical field, unlike Karl's preference for philosophy and literature. His dad's partially right, because, if you've ever found yourself in a pickle and you're being handcuffed in front of your family, you don't immediately turn to your wife and shout out, "Call my philosopher." You want a lawyer. Like, what's a philosopher going to do for you? Oh, well, I spoke to my philosopher the other day, and he said all existence is futile. Oh, that was helpful. That's great. Glad you pay him $1,000.
To be fair, if you don't have any money, I think calling your philosopher is a brilliant idea.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, the most of the time, like, philosophers, that was born out of, like, friends talking to each other in ancient Greece. That's where philosophy comes from. It's just people sitting around shooting the shit. That's literally where philosophy is born. So you might not be a philosopher, but you know a friend who has an opinion, and that's literally philosophy. At university, Marx quickly joined the Poets Club, which wasn't actually really full of that many poets. It was actually full of political radicals who, you guessed it, were monitored by the police all the time. He also joined the Trier Tavern Club drinking society. So there was an actual drinking society. And he became its co-president. He was so good at the drinking part.
Was it an officially sanctioned club by the school?
Yes.
Oh, nice.
It was part of the student body.
What
Karl
a time.
Marx, I know. 19th century Europe, you might die of dysentery, but you'll be so hammered you won't care. So, yeah, Karl Marx was a frat boy, basically, which is even weirder to think about. He spent so much time drinking, in fact, that his grades tanked, and his father forced him to transfer to the much more serious University of Berlin. It was here in Berlin that Marx encountered Hegelianism. The young Hegelians, Hegel, we'll get onto that in a second, a group of radical thinkers who were critical of religion and the Prussian political system. Marx found his people. Finally, a group of people that appreciated heavy thinking while getting absolutely plastered and drunk all of the time. So,
he sent him to a school with a heavier drinking club.
He did.
Oh,
but they kept his grades up. So like he was like, I'll get drunk with you. You just help me out on the back end. And they're like, we got you, buddy. You keep.
So the teachers were drunk too.
The teachers were in on it as well. They just wanted everyone to think and have a good time. What could be better in life? Thinking and drinking. So let me tell you a little bit about George Wilhelm Friedrich Hegel, who was a German literary scholar. He is kind of difficult to sum up. His influence is massive. He influenced both Karl Marx and Friedrich Nietzsche, who are like the two biggest, probably the two most influential philosophers of all time, and certainly the two most influential philosophers of the 19th century, because Karl Marx gave birth to communism, deliberately so. He was very much involved in that. And Friedrich Nietzsche's ideas were co-opted, definitely against his wishes, by the Nazis. So, two very opposing influences. Both of them drew directly from Hegel and Hegelianism. One of Hegel's most famous ideas, and definitely something that Nietzsche pinched, was the idea that people cannot presume any truths that have not passed the test of experience. So what he's saying is, you can try and explain anything you want to someone, but if they haven't experienced it themselves, they're never going to get it. So it's an interesting take. He's kind of overlooking empathy a little bit, I think. You can be empathetic to someone's situation without directly experiencing it, you know?
Yeah.
But, you know, it's kind of like trying to tell me that those buffalo wings are the best ones ever when I've never tasted them, or that America is slowly becoming an oligarchy. I can't agree with you until I've experienced it myself, like almost every American is doing right now with those buffalo wings. Yeah. So it's kind of, and what he's talking about is your interpretation of stuff may be completely different from mine. I have to experience it myself to know the truth of the experience.
So that stove's hot, but I don't know unless I touch it.
Yes. It's kind of learning, understanding the world around you. Fire bad? Let's see. That's effectively what you're dealing with. It's the mind of a child. His philosophy also emphasizes the interconnectedness of all things and the importance of understanding history and social development so that you don't repeat mistakes of the past. Guess how influential he's been on this podcast. He also came up with this Hegelian principle of recurrence. It was borrowed again by Nietzsche, this eternal recurrence thing where imagine life completely repeats itself over and over again and you're going to experience the same highs and lows. The idea is that you learn to make peace with that and not to fret on them quite so much because you're just going to experience them again. So just sort of let go of the stress and the worry and just live in that moment.
That's Zen, man.
It's very Zen. It's definitely one of the influences on it. So anyway, let's get back to Karl Marx and the influence he gets. This is part 2, Love, Marriage, and Chronic Unemployment. While studying in Berlin, Karl Marx got engaged to Jenny von Westphalen, who came from an aristocratic family. Jenny was, I mean, it's not fair to call her a cougar, but she's older by 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was unusual in the 19th century because around about this time, it's totally normal for like 40-year-old men to marry like 18, 19-year-old women. It's totally normal in the 19th century. But it was kind of the other way around, and also she was like a much higher station in life, in the like standing of society than Karl Marx was. So she broke off an engagement with a young aristocrat to be with this dude.
How did he meet her? Did he get her number off a bathroom wall?
Yeah, for a good time. Jenny, I mean, this is one of the worst financial decisions ever made in human history. I'm not kidding. She left a lifetime of guaranteed wealth and stability for a man who would go on to perfect the art of avoiding regular employment. Kind of just like my wife.
That's brilliant.
It's amazing. It works out every time. They married in 1843 after a 7-year engagement.
Dude, that's a lot. They got to really know each other.
They did, and like nowadays, that's fine. I don't think too many people are concerned about a 7-year engagement. That's understandable. My best friend had like a 9-year engagement, and I was like, maybe they'll get married soon. Really hope they get married soon. It's getting on for a decade. Maybe they should get married and have kids. But like 7 years, like fine. But back in the 19th century, that was very uncommon. It was like you got engaged and then you got married like 3 or 4 months later. Like there was no fucking around back then. There wasn't a shotgun involved, but it wasn't far off. You know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I mean, if you got together and then like you didn't have like prophylactics and stuff right there, right? You'd be probably popping out kids pretty quick, right?
Very quickly,
I would imagine.
And also, you know, this is it's still a society governed by religion, so it's like you will not live in sin.
Oh yeah, that
until
too.
You're married. Yeah. And that was Prussia, Russia at this time are experiencing like a huge rise in like quite intense, fervent Christian morals. Hence why Karl Marx is not particularly well liked already. So they're under pressure to get married. But 7 years is a long time, and the delay is less about romantic patience and finding life and like experiencing the world together as a non-married couple, and more to do with the fact that Karl Marx just couldn't hold a fucking job long enough to actually start a family.
Oh.
So, yeah, big problem at the time. He just couldn't hold anything down. In the meantime, Jenny's father, Ludwig, a liberal aristocrat who really liked Karl Marx, passed away while they were still engaged, which probably removed a major obstacle to their marriage, which was someone who could actually talk sense into Jenny. I want to pause for just a second and emphasize something important, because Karl Marx gets talked about a lot and all the people around him just kind of get ignored a little bit. Jenny was an amazing person in her own right, especially a woman in the 19th century, because she was an aristocrat, and even though they had access to wealth and education, they weren't it wasn't a given that they would be highly educated, even though they had access to it, because like you're a woman, and even though you're an aristocrat, you don't need to have an education. You need to be like this figurehead. You need to maybe do this and different things. You need to be a woman and fit those specific roles. But she was very educated, highly like university degree level educated. She was very cultured in like arts and science and political philosophy. She was really, really sharp. And also, again, from the upper echelons of society. So she understood the world and had access to the means to make the world better around her, which makes her a potent ally for Karl Marx, who is already at this point basically a revolutionary.
Okay.
She could have had a pick of the stable, though, like financially secure husbands or even a cadre of pretty Prussian boys with Prussian slongs, but she didn't. She chose a chronically unemployed philosopher with revolutionary ideas and a drinking habit. That's either true love or the world's worst risk management ever. By 1842, Marx had abandoned hopes of an academic career, partly because the Prussian government wasn't a big fan of hiring radical leftists as philosophers.
Why not?
Shocking. I know. It's probably try and deport them if it were this day and age. He became a journalist instead, because like that's, can't quite make it in academia. Go and write somewhere else. It makes sense.
Okay.
So, and there's a lot of revolutionary writing. He wrote for the Rheinische Zeitung. Oh, let me try that again. Rheinische. Oh my God. Rheinische Zeitung, a radical newspaper in Cologne. I got there in the end. Marx was actually a very good journalist when he actually bothered to fucking show up.
Okay.
It's kind of a little bit like, and who is it I'm thinking of here? Gonzo journalism. Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas.
Oh, dude, I was just watching that. Hunter S. Thompson?
Hunter S. Thompson,
Yeah.
an incredible writer, like poetic, like punchy. Everything he wrote hits really quite hard and makes you sit up and pay attention. But he was forever fucked up on drugs and booze and shit like that. And he would wake up at like fucking 5 p.m.
Yeah.
and start his day. So,
That's funny. Hunter S. Thompson and Bukowski and all of them are.
yep. They're kind of fuck ups, but they are geniuses. And it's the same thing with Karl Marx. He can't commit to a regular schedule, but when he works, it's amazing. His writing is brilliant, and people around him realize that. Long form, short form, everything is just completely unique and completely eye-catching. Obviously, there's another problem, is that the paper keeps getting censored by the Prussian authorities, who do not like leftist-leaning, non-state-based stuff at the time, and also Karl Marx is lazy as fuck, so it's not going anywhere. Marx lamented, "Our newspaper has to be presented to the police to be sniffed at, and if the police smells anything un-Christian or un-Prussian, the newspaper is not allowed to appear." It's cancel culture in the 19th century.
Aha.
The other way around. After publishing an article criticizing the Russian monarchy, Tsar Nicholas I personally requested that the newspaper be banned. So, yeah. It criticized me and it's un-Christian. So just get it out of the way so I can get back to punishing my own people and destroying my country.
So you're saying somebody in charge of a government like had a news outlet just done away with, like canceled? And...
Yeah. A popular, charismatic figurehead of a major critical news item says something bad about the leader of a nation and then loses his contract almost immediately and gets cancelled overnight. Gosh. I can't imagine a situation like that happening in the 21st century. Can you? That's terrible.
Nothing would ever happen like that these days.
No, that's terrible. That would never happen, especially in the free world.
Would feel
he and Jenny,
authoritarianist.
Yes. Karl Marx and Jenny moved to Paris, where he co-founded a radical left-wing newspaper called Deutsche Französische Jahrbucher. That's
a mouthful.
Yeah, it translates to German French Annals. This is less interesting when you hear the translation, to be honest.
Why has it got to be the annals?
Yeah, well, they're very anal about stuff. It lasted exactly one issue before his general financial incompetence shut it down. One issue.
Oops.
That's a ridiculous reign. I went around looking for like versions of media that had like shorter runs, like because he's so influential. I was trying to find stuff that was as short as that, and I found a TV show that had a very short run. In fact, just exactly the same short run as this. There's a TV show, British sitcom in 1990 called Heil Honey, I'm Home.
Oh, buddy.
You know where this is going.
No.
Yes. 1990, a TV company produced a sitcom that directly spoofed American sitcoms of the 1950s and 60s, you know, traditional, like the Honeymooners type.
Yeah, like I Love Lucy, Honeymooners.
I Love Lucy, shit like that. But instead it featured caricatures of Adolf Hitler and Eva Braun.
Why?
Because it's funny, apparently.
Oh, my.
You know? And this is 1990. A lot of the people who stormed the beaches in Normandy are still fucking alive.
Is it because it was apolitical, so it was funny? Because everybody thinks Nazis are bad.
They're silly and funny and bad. Therefore, let's put it in a humorous situation. It gets worse, though. It features Adolf Hitler and Eva Braun living in matrimonial bliss, even though they were only married for like 12 hours in real life before they both bit the poison cap and then got burned to death. They're living in absolute matrimonial bliss until, of course, they get new neighbors. Guess who their neighbors are?
I don't wanna.
They're Jewish.
No, they are.
Yeah, they made 7 episodes of this. 7 episodes, and at no point after like halfway through the first episode, someone should have been like, "What are we doing?"
Yeah.
Carried on with that shit, and it never made it to air. I think one of the episodes nearly made it to air, but then there was a merger between the two companies, and someone actually watched what was being produced by the people they were forming with, and like, are you out of your fucking mind? No, we're not putting Hitler on TV. Oh my god, I feel like
there for 7 episodes to have been
produced,
created, and put in a can.
Yep.
That took a number of people to act.
Yep.
And write. Show up and do camera work on,
and not a single, and you know what? All of them are going, oh, thank God I'm getting paid for some work now.
And then somebody was like, did anybody think this was dumb?
Should we be doing this? Should we maybe not be doing this?
This is a terrible idea, but they're paying me, so
yeah. Might this ruin our careers? Might this be the end of our careers? But you go and look up the cast of Heil Honey I'm Home. The guy who played Hitler, he got work after this. Not massive work, but like he got a fair amount of like paying gigs after this, which is kind of hilarious. I mean, like, you know, yuppie Nuremberg excuse. He was just paying the bills. So, you know, Jesus. Anyway, at least Marx got one of his things out. That was a tangent I should have saved, but I wanted to cover it. So let's move on to part 3: living in Paris, meeting Engels, and the ultimate enabler.
Okay.
So while in Paris, something happened that would change Karl Marx's life forever. In August 1844, at the Café de la Régence, yes, Café de la Régence. It's probably still there. He met Friedrich Engels, a fellow German revolutionary writer who'd become his lifelong friend, collaborator, and most importantly for Marx, financial supporter. Engels was the son of a wealthy textile manufacturer. Yes, an actual capitalist. The irony gods are working overtime on this fucking episode. Engels had been working at his father's factory in Manchester, England, and had seen firsthand the terrible conditions of the industrial working class, who were basically dying at the age of 40, and like deaf and impoverished, and the children were malnourished, and there was cholera and shit like that. Like Victorian England was a hellhole thanks to capitalism. He had just published The Condition of the Working Class in England, which documented these conditions in gritty detail. It's actually a really interesting read, because unlike Karl Marx's writings, Friedrich Engels, you're like, oh yeah, I can actually read this. Yeah, this isn't complicated at all. This is pretty straightforward. Whereas Karl Marx, you're like, oh my God, I'm going to have to take some fucking Adderall or something really kick in before I can read this. From the moment they met, Marx and Engels became intellectual soulmates. Engels later described their meeting as revealing an agreement in all theoretical fields. What he doesn't mention is that this agreement also extended to Engels bankrolling Marx's lifestyle for decades to come.
Okay, so he's like a benefactor. Is that what that is? Yeah. Okay.
He is a patron. He's a sponsor.
Yeah, that's what I was looking for.
No, you were right with benefactor as well. He is a wealthy person, but also like he's supposed to. I mean, that's what he ends up becoming. But he's supposed to really be a contemporary. He's supposed to be Marx's editor, effectively, because he is co-credited with one of Marx's works, which we'll get to in a bit, which you've definitely heard about. And also, if you go to the Highgate graveyard in London, Karl Marx is buried there, along with his wife and maybe a couple of his kids. Karl Marx's tombstone and dedication there is a giant statue. And next to him in the statue, with almost similar importance in style, is Friedrich Engels, because he is so important to the Karl Marx story that actually he definitely deserved co-billing. So, yeah, it's like Heat, you know, the film, the Michael Mann film. You know, you can't just have starring Robert De Niro, also Al Pacino's in it. You know, like, they have to be co-headliners, really.
Right, so,
yeah. But that's not how history remembers him, because Engels was like, oh, shit, I have to actually work. I can't just write revolutionary pamphlets all the time. I actually have to pay for my living. Marx was like, I'm not fucking doing that. So basically, Engels is the friend who picks up the tab because they have a good job while you're between opportunities, except in this case, Engels kept picking up the tab for 40 fucking years. So, yeah. Oops. That's not friendship. That's like a lifetime adoption, effectively. While in Paris, Marx began an intensive study of political economy, reading works by Adam Smith and David Ricardo. He also wrote his Economic and Philosophical Manuscripts of 1844, which, true to form for Karl Marx, wouldn't be published until 1932, nearly 50 years after he died. Yeah.
Well, that's helpful.
I want a lot of this, and I have to point this out. This is so crucial to a lot of the people, and we've covered one before: starving artists who are really famous after they die, and who just have the courage to just create in their lifetime, even though they're not getting like the direct financial rewards that their work deserves. So we've covered Van Gogh, who definitely did not see the fruits of his labor until after, his estate is now worth billions of dollars. Same thing with Karl Marx. He did not see true success until he was dead. So
right.
That's exactly the problem here. Marx was basically ahead of his time, partly because nobody in his time would publish his works, because they just didn't understand it. It was too... They're like, so you're predicting the future? You're telling us what's going to happen with capitalism? Like, no one's going to read that. Actually, they should have been fucking reading that. They might have been able to stop a lot of the shit that's happening now. But early in 1845, Marx had managed to get himself expelled from France, thanks to writing some particularly spicy articles in another radical newspaper, Vorwärts. The French government, at the request of the Prussian king this time, shut down the newspaper and kicked him out of the fucking country, along with his wife and newborn child. So...
Well, damn.
That's 2 countries he's exiled from now. Jobless once again, and now homeless too. Marx moved to Brussels, Belgium, with Jenny and their infant daughter. Jenny, Caroline, that's not going to get confusing later in the script. So let's go on to part 4, Brussels, writing revolution and chronic debt. In Brussels, Karl Marx continued his pattern of writing revolutionary texts while living in near poverty. Engels soon joined him there, amazingly, and together they wrote The German Ideology and The Holy Family. Neither of them sold anything, really. They were basically like fucking fan fiction levels of sales. And kind of a pattern developing with them. They write these amazing pieces. Nobody reads them. It was during the time in Belgium, however, in Brussels, that Marx joined the Communist League, a revolutionary socialist organization. The League, knowing that Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels were pretty good writers, definitely Karl Marx, commissioned them to write a platform document for their ideas and stuff they kind of wanted to put out in the world, a little document you might have heard of called the Communist Manifesto, which was published in February 1848.
Okay, I've heard of that, I think.
Yes, the one that begins with "A spectre is haunting Europe, the spectre of communism," and ends with "Workers of the world, unite. You have nothing to lose but your chains." That one sold a little bit better. That's racked up over 500 million copies sold worldwide to date, and a further 1.5 billion handed out as freebies. So it's kind of like the Gideon Bible of revolutionary political stuff. As you open a fucking drawer in a hotel room. Ooh, wait, what's this? Gideon's Bible, Communist Manifesto, Anarchist Cookbook? What kind of a fucking hotel is this?
Now that's a hotel, buddy.
That's a fucking fun time right there. What's ironic is while Marx was writing about workers losing their chains, his family was losing their furniture to debt collectors at this point, despite having received a substantial inheritance from his father, which was withheld by his uncle until 1848, which I would imagine is because he realizes Karl is not particularly good with money. Marx was constantly broke. He blew through the inheritance in 5 years, and it was their version of millions of dollars. So,
oh, that's unfortunate.
Yeah, kind of wasteful. Didn't invest any of it, just spent it. So he didn't even didn't think about buying property, or maybe putting some of it in the stock market, or maybe buying some land, or buying a business. No, it just went on clothes and booze and cigars and random junk. you wouldn't believe. By combining the spending habits of a middle-class intellectual with the income of an unemployed revolutionary who also likes to drink, they were constantly broke as a family. Jenny Marx, meanwhile, was living the nightmare version of marry for love, not money. She went from an aristocratic comfort life to pawning family heirlooms just to buy food, which is so fucking sad. At one point, she was so desperate that she wrote to a friend saying, "For 8 days, I had to run from pillar to post to get a few shillings or pence so that I could buy the barest necessities. Think of it, a mother with her little children has no food." Just let that fucking sink in while Karl Marx is writing about the exploitation of the working class. His family is fucking starving. And he's not got a job. So Jenny went from having servants to being unable to feed her children, all while her husband theorized about economic injustice. If that's not a brutal irony, I don't know what is. The year 1848 brought about a number of revolutions across Europe, like massive revolutionary movements that started. Karl Marx, also, just on a little side note here, Europe was exploding with revolutions in 1848. They were happening. It's a bit like the Arab Spring that we got like 10 to 15 years ago when, you know, stuff broke out in Egypt and then Syria, and all of these countries suddenly started seeing rapid revolutionary movements. Same thing in 1848 in Europe, essentially. It was about to happen in England, but the government and the king decided to build a giant crystal palace full of like trinkets and playthings, so that people could go down and see the lovely crystal palace, and you get in for free. And look at all the cool shit we've got. Wow, isn't it amazing? Right, it's been 5 years. Are they calmed down now? Yeah, right. Burn it to the fucking ground. That's literally what happened. It burned down, even though it's made of glass. Amazingly,
that's a cool trick.
That is, yeah. Just chuck a load of accelerant on it. We're done with this now. They can't take it down. Anyway, so the year's 1848, revolutions breaking out across Europe, and Marx returns to Germany, even though he's been kicked out, thinking that it's time for a communist revolution, and he would be the leading figurehead behind it, and there'd be a big battle and war in the streets, and they'd eventually win. Spoiler alert, it didn't happen. He kind of went on the run, started another newspaper, the Neue Rheinische Zeitung, which actually lasted about a year before the government shut it down and expelled Marx from the country forever. This time. He didn't sneak back in. He's done with Germany. So by 1849, Marx was forced to flee, literally, because he's a wanted international fugitive, to London, where he would spend the rest of his life. At this point, he was stateless, jobless, and nearly penniless. The perfect startup for writing a multi-volume critique of capitalism, right?
I mean, it sounds like he's got the experience to write from.
He does. He's lived the grinding poverty. He's seen how good things can get for the top level of people, and he sold his wife's jewelry, so now he knows how everything works, really. So why not write about it? So now let's get to part 5, London and the perpetual house guest. The Marx family arrived in London in June 1849 and moved into a 3-room apartment in Soho, one of the city's poorest areas at the time. But now it's home to some of the finest pornographic establishments anywhere in the world, and a Catholic church that I went to with my wife. We had a day in London, really cool day, the height of summer, about 10 years ago, back when I had energy to do this shit. So we got a train into London from where we were living. We had lunch in the Tate Modern on the roof deck overlooking all of London. You could see everything. It was marvellous. And I had this sandwich that cost £13, which I was like, oh, it's a delicious sandwich, but why the fuck am I spending so much money on it? Anyway, we finished that, and my wife, we had a gig in the evening to go to in the Ronnie Scott Jazz Club. And my wife wanted to go to a bunch of museums with me because I was desperate. And she was like, it'll only take us about 20 minutes to walk there. Let's not bother with the tube, because the tube would have been hot as balls. There's no air conditioning down there, and it was summer. And it actually didn't. It took us like 45 minutes to walk through London, maybe an hour. And we nearly roasted to death in the heat. And we stopped in Soho. there was a mass on. My wife wanted to go to mass. We went to mass. It was nice and cool in there because it's a big marble church, so it was nice and cool. And then after that, we went and had some food in Soho, and I paid like £6 for a main course because there's so many restaurants in that part of London. It was such a poor part of town that everything is super cheap there. So I had a chicken Kiev with vegetables and potatoes. Very simple food. £6. It's delicious.
That's cheaper than the sandwich. So go half the price of the sandwich.
I know, for a fucking full meal. And then we had a jazz gig in the evening, which was fun. Which was a band called Get the Blessing, and the drummer of them is in Radiohead now. So that was kind of cool. Yeah. A really, really fun day. But I came back at the end of the day and I was exhausted and fucking bleak. I was red as a fucking tomato from the sun because I'm a ginger. So they're living in Soho, and to call their living conditions squalid would be, an insult to student accommodation. To be honest with you, they couldn't afford, I beg your pardon, proper medical care, decent food. They mostly ate bread and potatoes, and they couldn't really even properly bury one of their children who died in infancy. That's some proper poverty right there. Speaking of their children, Karl and Jenny had 7 children together. That's going to make your situation better.
Yes, that's.
Also, he didn't wash. So where's the attraction here? He's getting older. Surely, Jenny, it's time to say no and close your legs. Really.
He's charismatic and amazing.
He is charismatic. Yeah, that'll be it.
He loves her a lot.
He does. And that beard is glorious and only slightly smells of haddock. They had 7 children together. Only 3 survived to adulthood. I know. It's not.
The olden days were so dangerous.
I know, but it's not that many kids were dying at this point. Like, if he'd just applied himself a little bit, they'd have been fine.
To be fair, it's hard to get work when you're an international fugitive that nobody wants to hire.
That's true. If you're an international fugitive, but also he's like a recognized journalist at this point. So
yeah, but nobody wants to hire because you write about shit that people don't let you write about.
Yeah, it is kind of, again, it's a bit like the Hunter S. Thompson thing where it's like he can only really get work for Rolling Stone because no one else puts up with that shit.
Well, and then it's like, okay, well, what do? You're a writer, you're a painter, you're a whatever. Well, go be a mechanic. Well, I'm not a fucking mechanic.
Well, he actually makes that exact point later on.
Oh, okay, cool. Let's get to it. There we go.
Yeah.
I'll leave you to it.
Yeah, no. You're absolutely right. Like, you can't just shift. You can't just make that shift. And especially, like, in a capitalist society where you have been, like, forced down a specific avenue by the means of, like, making money, you can't just then change careers, like, after 20 years. You've got to play catch-up, and there are people half your age who are, like, twice as experienced as you. So
it does make it more difficult to try and be like, you know what? I absolutely hate what I'm doing right now. I would like to go do this. Okay, cool. Now you make minimum wage again, work your way back up. Oh, yeah, but I'm 45 years old and minimum wage doesn't pay me enough to pay my rent. Okay, get 2 jobs then.
It's almost like the system's been designed that way to fuck people over and keep them in a position where they're making just enough to get by.
That.
Yeah. It's almost like a deliberate setup, which is about to predict. So the other children, Edgar, Guido, and Franziska, and an unnamed child, they all died young, victims of the poverty their father couldn't really escape despite his brilliant mind. Friedrich Engels, now working at his father's firm in Manchester, sent money regularly to keep the Karl Marx family afloat. Without Engels, they would likely have starved to death at this point. This dependence created an awkward dynamic where the foremost critic of capitalism was essentially living off the profits of a textile factory that exemplified capitalist exploitation of its own workers. He was writing about the exploitation that these workers were experiencing while actually getting, the profits from their labor. There's a lot of irony.
Son of a...
I know, it kind of keeps getting worse. To supplement Engels' support, Marx actually took up work as a correspondent for the New York Daily Tribune.
Well, that's an interesting turn of events.
That is a bit of a shift, and he was employed by them for 10 years. So
okay.
That's the longest run of his life, and he wrote about European politics. It's kind of a perfect gig for him. Like,
yeah,
we need someone to write about European politics. If only we had someone who'd been expelled from every European country and who had a really good understanding of every political system in each country, who's also a bit of a slob and needs work. Who can we find that is in that exact position? Oh, wait, this guy's burying a child over there. Let's go and talk to him.
So we could get him cheap.
Yeah, he's super cheap. Yeah, I bet you we can get him cheap. He won't know about how capitalism works. The pay wasn't great. But it was something. And when the paper started cutting back his articles during an economic recession, which he actually predicted 5 years before it came, Marx wrote to Engels, "It is truly frightening to find oneself once more on the edge of the abyss." And I'm sure the advice he got from the people he was working with was, just go down Tesco's, mate. Go and work in Greg's. You know, just get that. Just go and work at McDonald's. You'll be fine. They'll
just
look
grab onto them bootstraps and pull up real hard. You'll be all right.
That'll be fine. Yeah, you young'uns, you millennials, you silent generationers, you're just lazy. You don't know how to work hard. The Marx household expanded in 1851 when Helene Demuth, who had been a servant in Jenny's family household, came to live with them, basically because she wrote home and she was like, fucking help me. So the family sent over a servant who they sort of paid for.
Goodness.
On the sly, so Karl wasn't exploiting labor. Oh, get out of my house. They were like, just go in there and sort them out. We'll pay you.
Okay.
Helene was known as Lenchen. It became essential to the household's functioning and was treated as part of the family. And she actually really loved her time in London because it's a cool city to hang out in and stuff. And the Marx family, despite Karl Marx being just a hypocrite, he's actually a really loving dad and a really loving husband, and also kind of quite fun to be around because he could be kind of goofy at times. But there are also rumors, unconfirmed but persistent, that Karl Marx fathered a son with the servant named Freddie, who was raised by another family to avoid scandal. So he did a Schwarzenegger with that one.
Oops.
He did an Arnold. I can get away with this. While his family struggled, Marx spent most of his days at the British Museum reading room, researching and writing. He would leave home early in the morning and return late in the evening, spending the intervening hours immersed in books and notes. One could argue that he was working full-time, he just wasn't getting paid for it. So, that's his life. He's just in a library. I've got to be honest, just holed up in a library all day. It sounds pretty fucking good to me, to be honest.
Right.
His obsessive research habits, combined with poor health and worsening financial management, created a life of perpetual crisis. The Marx household was constantly dodging creditors, moving apartments when the rent came due, so they'd just sign up for 6 months, not pay for 3, and when someone came knocking on the door, they were already down the road, and pawning whatever possessions remained. Marx once wrote to Engels, "For the past 8 or 10 days, I've been plagued by a ridiculous degree, by bill acceptances which are falling due. Translation, help me with the bills again, please." Engels, ever the loyal friend, kept sending money. When Marx needed to take health cures at seaside resorts, which is an actual treatment they recommended in the 19th century, I kind of love it. They're like, "Oh, you feeling a bit ill? I'm prescribing you a holiday.
I need that, doctor."
We all need this. This needs to be medical treatment now. You need 2 weeks off in a seaside town, paid for.
I agree, and I need this doctor. This is a new form of medicine that needs to start happening.
Yeah. This is every doctor in England in the 19th century. They're like, go and take the sea air. It's good for you. And they're right. Because, yes, the sea air and the salt, all of that, yeah, it's a different kind of atmosphere. It's fresh, it's clean, it's not crowded London where there's smog everywhere and shit. But also, You sleep a lot. You eat interesting food. You do fuck all. You get buried in the sand by your kids. It's like, it's a no-brainer. Your blood pressure drops, you get better. So prescribe holidays as treatment. Anyway, Engels paid for those.
Nice.
Yeah.
What a friend.
What a good guy.
Give me one of them friends.
Yeah, we all need a patron like that. When Karl Marx's family needed to move to a slightly better neighborhood for their daughter's sake, Engels subsidized that as well, so they needed to move house, probably because they'd racked up bills. And when Marx needed clothes to make him look presentable so that he could continue his research at the British Museum, Engels sent clothes because the British Museum were like, fucking hell, dude, just wash them, please. You smell of farts. Okay, it's really bad. He also had a habit of smoking like the biggest fucking cigars you've ever seen in your life, giant stogies, and he's drunk, and his pockets are full of manuscripts. So it's like,
oh,
it's quite a combination. He's basically a walking tinderbox waiting to go up. Like, he could fucking catch fire at any time. In 1864, Marx helped found the International Workmen's Association, later known as the First International, giving him a platform for his ideas, but still no regular income. So now let's get to part 6, Das Kapital, the book that took forever to write. Throughout the 1850s and early 1860s, Karl Marx worked on his magnum opus, Das Kapital, which translates to capital, surprisingly, a critique of political economy. The first volume was finally published in 1867. It took him 15 years to finish the first volume of a planned 3-volume work, and you thought George R.R. Martin took long to write his fucking books. 15 years for the first volume.
So if you figured it out of the averages of 15, it's never going to get it done.
Years. No, he's a middle-aged dude at this point.
Oh, buddy.
Yeah, and he's not in good health either. This took so long partly because Marx was a perfectionist who was constantly revising his works. He needed an editor so badly to just be like, dude, just stop. I mean, we've all been there, right? We've all been in a creative function where we're like, oh my God, I just need to tweak this or I need to tweak that. A friend of mine, and I've experienced it as an editor myself, but a friend of mine he was a director, really high profile video campaigns and like international stuff for major clients, video stuff, and he would invite me in to like help edit the scripts, but also for the editing. So I'd be in this editing bay with this very expensive editing equipment all around me, and he was like, listen, I've done the latest color correction, and I just want you to tell me about the color of the sky. And I was like, fucking stop and step outside. Look up, right? Take a few deep breaths and then go back in and look. And he was like, right. And I was like, can you tell the difference? He was like, no. And I was like, no one else will. Stop editing. You're worrying about the tones of green in the sky. Nobody's going to see that shit. Just calm down. You've been in this studio for too long. Get outside. You smell like haddock. Again. So he's constantly editing his work. He can't get it finished, and that's why it's taking 15 years. But also, he's frequently too ill to work. He's distracted by his political activities, or he's too broke and constantly having to move from apartment to apartment to actually focus consistently on his book. His poor health, which included carbuncles, liver problems, and insomnia, was likely exacerbated by his ridiculous lifestyle of excessive smoking, excessive drinking, and terrible eating habits, because he would actually spend more money on his own food than his family, but he would eat the worst stuff that London had to offer, like jellied eels, which, like, yeah, it's exactly as bad as it sounds. Pickles and jellied eels.
What kind of jelly? What? Ew.
Like, so think of, how could I describe this?
I don't want to.
Basically fat. It's basically fat, which makes it worse. So, yeah, he's eaten all of that. His work habits were as chaotic as his finances. He would work obsessively for days at a time without sleeping, but then be unable to write for weeks because he'd made himself ill. So,
okay,
pace yourself, dude. You know. His correspondence is full of apologies for delayed manuscripts and promises to finish work soon, promises he rarely kept on time. Jenny once described their living situation. 3 children died immediately after birth because of our wretched circumstances, for we lived in one room with a folding bed and a small side room. That was their apartment.
That's a tiny place.
Yeah, that's 5 of them. Oh, no, sorry, 6 of them. So that's 3 adults, including the maid, and 3 kids in a 1.5 room apartment in Victorian London.
No wonder he knocked the maid up then.
Yeah, it's like, I'm going mad. I've got to fuck something.
Well, he just probably. I mean, they were all in the room. He didn't. No.
No,
I don't know where I was going with that.
No. Like, he's just like he's so desperately upset by everything that he's just kind of doing whatever he can to distract himself. So it's not exactly the perfect.
Just figured it was a dark room.
Yeah, it is. It is, because they haven't got any fucking light. They can't afford candles. They can't even afford a fucking window at this point. It's not the greatest environment for writing you'd expect from one of the most influential philosopher, well, the most influential philosopher of all time. The first volume of Das Kapital surprisingly didn't sell well initially. It did slowly trickle in. Like, he'd sell a few thousand copies a year, like enough to kind of keep them afloat, but not the level it has done since he died. I've got a copy of Das Kapital. It's the kind of book you read if you can't sleep. That sounds really offensive, but actually I'm saying that because it's so dense, but also it kind of hooks you. You're like, oh yeah, oh shit, he's right. Yeah, he's right about that. And when it's translated into the language you understand, like, I've experienced that, I understand that. But after like 45 minutes of reading that, you are like ready to nod off, like, because it's so intense. The book didn't sell well, but Friedrich Engels, who understood that the book was very important and incredibly well written, wrote a bunch of anonymous reviews praising it to generate interest. So viral marketing.
The original Amazon reviews? He's the original bot?
Verified purchase. Marketing genius, desperate promotion. It's a bit of both, really. Marx never completed volumes 2 and 3 of Das Kapital in his lifetime. They were published posthumously by Engels, who assembled them from Marx's unfinished manuscripts, and there were tens of thousands of unfinished manuscripts. So it's kind of like that thing, like, oh my god, how did Tupac release all of that music after he died? Maybe he's still alive. No, the motherfucker just recorded a lot, and there was a lot of stuff lying around. So that's basically it. It's the same thing with Karl Marx. So, you know, this means that the complete version of Marx's most important work isn't even fully written by Marx. It's kind of like claiming you painted a masterpiece when your friend coloured in half of the canvas with Sharpies after you drank and smoked yourself to death.
Well, that's how I plan on doing it.
It's a good way. It's a good way of doing it. You're going to have quite the legacy 50 years after you're dead. Despite his intellectual achievements, Marx remained financially dependent on Engels until the end. When Engels finally retired from his father's business, his father was dead at this point, in 1869, he provided Marx with an annual pension of £350, equivalent to $40,000 today. You combine that with the trickle of income he's getting from Das Kapital and the slow notoriety he's starting to get from people in England, but also people who are sort of starting to make a pilgrimage to this guy who's published this revolutionary document, which is starting to get a bit of attention. He's in his 50s now, and he's finally achieved financial stability. It only took 4 dead kids. You know, Jesus. And God knows how many creditors. Like, they're probably still chasing him at this point, but he's like, let's leave that in the past, shall we? They lived in modest luxury and quite decent comfort until Jenny passed away in 1881. Marx himself died 2 years later at the age of 64, but he looked 84. You know,
okay, yeah, it was all the jelly deals.
Yeah, it's all the jelly deals and the fucking the stogies and the fucking ample beer and wine that he's just drinking. All the man, the British Museum must have hated this dude.
Dude, he pickled himself.
He did. And, like, if you look at him as well, you're like, oh, he's not a tall dude. So he was practically round when he passed away, like just perfectly circular. There's a very famous picture of him sitting in a chair with like one hand,
Oh yeah.
like inside his waistcoat. It's like the picture of Karl Marx. You look at him, that's like a few years before he died, so he's like 60 in that picture, and he looks about 84. At least he looks 84, 85, maybe 90. So like, if you saw this dude, thank you, Derek, for pulling up this picture. If you saw this dude, you wouldn't think, oh, he's 60. You'd be like, how are you even still alive, old man? Like, fuck me.
Yeah, definitely not 60 looking.
Yeah, not a young 60. That's like a fucking Ric Flair 60 right there. His funeral was only attended by 11 mourners. But by the time Laura Marx, his daughter, died in 1911, his fame and influence had grown to such an extent that Lenin attended his funeral and gave a speech. I like that. That's a good joke. I'm glad you did that. So I found a decades-old manuscript of the speech that Lenin gave at Jenny Marx's funeral. She was married to ironically, she married a philosopher who was like, your dad's a fucking genius. And she's like, oh, okay, yeah, I'll marry you. So here's a snippet from Lenin's speech. It's only a snippet, though, because that motherfucker goes on, did old Lenny. Comrades, on behalf of the Russian Social Democratic Labour Party, I wish to convey our feelings of deep sorrow of the death of Paul and Laura Lafargue. Even in the period of preparation for the Russian Revolution, the class-conscious workers of all social democrats of Russia learned profound respect for Lafargue as one of the most gifted and profound disseminators of the ideas of Marxism. Ideas that were so brilliantly confirmed by the class struggle during the Russian Revolution and counter-revolution. United under the banner of those ideas, the vanguard of the Russian workers waged an organized mass struggle and dealt a blow to absolutism. It upheld, as it continues to uphold, the cause of socialism, the cause of the revolution, the cause of democracy, despite the treachery, vacillation, and irresolution of the liberal bourgeoisie. And that's what Lenin said at Marx's daughter's funeral. He goes on for a lot longer than that, but I'm not fucking reading the rest of that shite. Part 7. Personal failings, man behind the theory. So let's talk about the personal failings that we've kind of touched on a lot. Karl Marx was, to put it bluntly, a mess of contradictions. For a man who wrote about the exploitation of labour, he never held a steady job and relied on others' labour to support him. His friend Engels was essentially working as a capitalist to fund Marx, the prototypical anti-capitalist, and his writings. That's like having your vegan manifesto supported and sponsored by, I don't know, Red Lobster or something like that.
Tyson Chicken?
Yes. Fucking Popeyes. Marx was notoriously bad with money, despite periods when he had a decent income, like his inheritance, or times when his journalism was paying well, or the fact that he published a decent manifesto. He always managed to squander it and spend way beyond his means. He lived perpetually in debt, frequently pawned his possessions, and stole his wife's family heirlooms to borrow money, which he rarely repaid.
Mm-hmm.
He would borrow money and then refuse to pay it back when he was confronted with it. He should have used that borrowed money that he refused to pay back to build a giant tower with his name on it. That would have been far more appropriate use of that money.
Yeah, and then maybe he could have started a school, and then he could have got a cryptos. He could have sold some shoes and maybe a Bible.
That's it, yeah. And then start a war with Rupert Murdoch that he's going to lose. Yeah, we're still talking about Karl Marx.
Yes, he's not paying back money he borrowed.
Yeah, can you believe there's parallels between Karl Marx and fucking Trump? Meanwhile, Marx insisted on maintaining certain middle-class standards. He wanted his daughters to take piano lessons, learn to draw, and speak multiple languages, all expensive pursuits for a family that basically couldn't afford bread. The girls occasionally attended social events in dresses that were sewn from curtains, like some sort of revolutionary version of The Sound of Music. His health problems were largely self-inflicted. Marx smoked heavily, constantly, like literally the second he woke up to the second he went to sleep, drank to excess, ate jellied eels like they were going out of fashion, and worked the most irregular hours that a human being ever can work. He suffered from insomnia, yet refused to regulate his habits. His body was covered in painful boils and carbuncles that his contemporaries attributed to his lifestyle. According to historical accounts, Marx was also not the most pleasant person to be around if he wasn't feeling great. He could be argumentative, sarcastic, and dismissive of others' ideas if he didn't think they were up to his level. He engaged in vicious intellectual feuds and could often hold grudges for decades. One contemporary described him as a most disagreeable face. He is dirty, with greasy hair, uncombed, unwashed, with a torn coat, coal-black hands, pockets bulging with manuscripts, books, and newspapers. So a writer.
So a writer.
Yeah, he's describing every writer I've ever known. Perhaps most damning is how he treated his family. While he undoubtedly loved them, and like it's really kind of cool that if you read the stuff about their personal lives, he had a deep love for his wife. He subjected them to decades of poverty, uncertainty, because of his unwillingness to compromise his intellectual pursuits for practical concerns. Now, I've heard one interesting take on this. It's kind of a conspiracy theory that Karl Marx was so intelligent and that he'd heard from enough people that he valued, which there weren't many of them, he thought everyone else was fucking stupid, who were like, listen, you are writing good stuff, you need to write this, it's going to be important for future history, that he basically refused to do anything but focus on these intellectual pursuits because he was told and he understood how important they were, and that actually the importance of these future documents would outweigh the suffering of his family. I don't know if I believe that theory. I think he just kind of forgot about that in his moments.
Yeah, I mean, I think sometimes it doesn't matter what you do or how hard you work or what you're able to scrape by with or put together money-wise. Sometimes your family has a rough go of it, and you can put in all the work and hours and effort that you have available, and still your family's going to have a rough go if you're in an area where it's not enough to pay for the medical and the house and your cigars and your jelly deals, and like, because you shouldn't necessarily have to give up the stuff that makes your life and your day worth getting by.
And, you know, maybe he realized that. Maybe he was like, listen, it doesn't matter what I do, this isn't going to work out, so I might as well do something that in the long term will work out. It may not even be in my lifetime.
Yeah, so. I really don't know, because it feels like sometimes you can work as hard as you want and still end up just with dirty hands and a broken back and dead at the bottom of a coal mine, broke, with your family suffering the same.
Exactly. And he may have made the choice like, that's going to happen anyway. I might as well write some of the most important stuff in human history because I have the ability to do that. And also, we haven't even considered the fact that maybe he did have ADHD. Maybe he was on the spectrum. You know, maybe he was incapable of managing those things for a very specific reason. Maybe, you know.
Does make it hard to maintain a regular sort of employment.
It definitely does. And it can make you very difficult to work with. Which Karl Marx definitely was. Definitely a bit of a prick. So that could explain some of the shit that we're seeing, but obviously you don't have a proper medical diagnosis of this other than his carbuncles and boils. So.
Yeah. Well, gosh, like I have
explain his habits.
I have such a hard time with the whole like his family lived in the suffering and the like. I guess in a way it was his fault because he wasn't bringing home the money and the food, but I don't think it was for lack of, like, he was like, fuck you, I'm not bringing home money or food.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't like, you're going to starve. Choice. Yeah. It was.
He's not a sadist or a psychopath. He's just unable to hold down a job and is focused on other stuff.
Sometimes that gets difficult when it's like, oh, well, just don't be a dick. Yeah, well, I'm not fucking walking around trying to be hard to get along with and not able to hold a job. I imagine would be something that somebody would think
Yeah.
you're having a hard time.
Also, he's living in a time and in a capitalist system that values like cheap labor in factories over like intellectual pursuits. Not that intellectual pursuits has ever really been that well paid, let's be honest, in any time in human history. But like they wanted people to work in factories until their fucking hands fell off and then just be happy and deal with it. And if your kids die, they die. And he was like, well, that's going to happen anyway. So fuck it. I'll write a world-changing series of books. And that's what he did. There's more, though. The ultimate irony in all of this is that when Engels died in 1895, he left a substantial portion of his estate to Marx's daughters, money derived directly from the capitalist system their father had spent his entire life criticizing. The daughters of communism's founding father lived their later years on capitalist profits, and they lived well, really, really well. And thank God, because they'd been through so much shit from like a very early age that why shouldn't they have a comfortable life for a few years? Jesus, you know,
make up for it. Yeah.
And and also like, so let's get to the final part: the legacy, the world-changing ideas from a chaotic life. Despite his personal failings, which we've talked about just there, Marx's intellectual legacy is the most undeniable of basically any philosopher in human history, or even any thinker in human history. People can criticize him until the cows come home about his beliefs, but he's right like 90% of the time, and that is hard for anyone to do. His analysis of capitalism identified genuine problems that continue to resonate to this day. Marx accurately predicted that capitalism would foster a system that would basically turn into what we refer to as globalization. He saw capitalism creating a world market in which countries would become increasingly interdependent. All old-fashioned national industries have been destroyed or are daily being destroyed. In place of the old local or national seclusion and self-sufficiency, we have intercourse in every direction, universal interdependence of nations. And he said that that would create a system where every 10 to 15 years you'd have a massive recession, either globally or regionally. And he has been right basically ever since then. He also talked about how capitalism would keep iterating, not necessarily to improve, partially to improve, but to keep people so bewildered that they'd be unable to catch up. And this is a really interesting idea. Constant revolutionizing of production, uninterrupted disturbance of all social conditions, everlasting uncertainty and agitation distinguish the bourgeois epoch, the time that they were living in, from all earlier eras. It's been designed to keep you confused and constantly playing catch up so that you don't have time to actually think about it and break free and do something else. Yeah. He predicted that powerful companies, concentrations of wealth, and new methods of production would make it increasingly difficult for independent professionals and middle-class merchants to maintain their status, therefore creating a wealth gap. He also thought that human beings have a natural inclination to feel connected to the objects that they have made or created by hand. He called this the objectification of labor, by which he meant that we put something of ourselves into our work. And man, when I read that, I fucking felt that. I was like, yes, I get invested in the work I do, even if it's menial. I kind of identify with it. I feel elements of it to a certain extent. I kind of want good things to happen, even if it's in a job that I don't particularly like. But he also said, when you cannot connect with one's own creation anymore, when one feels external to it, alienation results. It's as if you were to sculpt a statue, a beautiful statue that you put your heart and soul into, and then someone bought it off you, took it from you, but instead of like showing it to people, they were like, you can never see or touch this again. You will never see pictures of it again. It is gone from your world. And that's how he saw the labor stuff. Now, I understand you get rid of that and, you know, you sell stuff, it's fine. But usually you take a picture of it, you have fond memories of it, but what he's saying is that the way that capitalism is structured with this specific work is that you get it and it's gone. It is out there, you never see it again, you never hear from it again. I felt that for a lot of things I've done in my recent life, where I've like helped create these amazing companies or these amazing products or these amazing pieces of art for people who have definitely exploited my labor and definitely underpaid me, and then I've just been cut off from it and cast out. And I felt that, and like, I'm partially responsible for the success. This person I helped turn into a millionaire, this person I helped create this amazing iconic thing for, I'm not allowed to be a part of that anymore, and it's painful to me. So Marx wanted us to be able to break free from the tyranny of the division of labor and long working days, which prevented individuals from developing different kinds of capacities and talents. We become servants to one kind of activity, and other dimensions of our personalities are left undeveloped. In an aspirational passage which he wrote as a 16-year-old, he framed his vision this way: for as soon as the distribution of labor comes into being, each man has a particular exclusive sphere of activity which is forced upon him and from which he cannot escape. He is a hunter, a fisherman, a herdsman, or a critic, and must remain so if he does not want to lose his means of livelihood. While in a communist society where nobody has one exclusive sphere of activity, but each can become accomplished in any branch he wishes, society regulates the general production, and thus makes it possible for me to do one thing today and another thing tomorrow, to hunt in the morning, to fish in the afternoon, to rear cattle in the evening, to criticize after dinner. He probably did that to his wife's cooking anyway, the cunt. Just as I have a mind without ever becoming exclusively a hunter, a fisherman, a herdsman, or a critic. I love that. He's 16 at that point. It's kind of mind-blowing. Little bit. It really is. His concepts of class struggle, alienation, and historic materialism provided new ways of understanding society and economics. The historian Eric Hobsbawm noted, "One cannot say Marx died a failure. Within 25 years of his death, Marxist parties across Europe were gaining significant electoral success. Within 50 years of his death, his ideas had inspired revolutions that had reshaped the global political landscape." Marx's work influenced not just politics, but sociology, history, economics, and philosophy. Whether you agree with his conclusions or not, and I look at where we are now, how can you disagree with him? His critiques forced serious reconsideration on economic systems and social structures. What's fascinating is how this intellectual giant, whose ideas would eventually influence literal billions of people, couldn't manage his own household economy. The man who wrote extensively about economic systems couldn't balance his personal budget. The philosopher who analyzed the exploitation of labor exploited his friend's generosity for decades. The journalist Isaiah Berlin described Marx as the true founder of modern sociology, insofar as one can claim the title. Yet this founder of sociology created social chaos in his own home. His daughter Eleanor absolutely adored him, but acknowledged the difficult environment she grew up in, writing that their family life had been a long struggle and a hard fight. Perhaps the ultimate irony is that this failed provider, chronic debtor, and lifelong dependent created ideas so powerful they completely changed the world. Revolutions were fought in his name. Nations structured their entire economies around his theory. His image appeared on flags, on banners, on currency. Not bad for a guy who couldn't pay his rent. And that's Karl Marx in a nutshell. A nutshell he probably paid too much for, and like probably dribbled down his overpriced shirt because he was a slob. So
got stuck in his beard.
He got stuck in his beard a little bit for later. You know, just leave it there. It's a snack for later on. So that's a long one, I know. And to be honest, I didn't even cover all of it. There's a whole... He gets taken to court at one point, right? by someone who thinks this guy's lazy, he's a lazy journalist, he's a dilettante, he's been kicked out of every nation, this is going to be a cakewalk. And Karl Marx absolutely fucking destroys him on the stand. He gets on the stand, and because he had a little bit of training as a lawyer, and he's a genius, and he's good at logic, he just completely annihilates the prosecution, and the judge dismisses it by the time he's finished talking. It's kind of amazing. That's how clever this guy was. Imagine if he applied that to a different thing. He would have been a millionaire. So
yeah, and I mean, I guess roundabout sort of way towards the end there he was, huh?
yeah, because he got a pension from someone else. So
Oh man,
it's hard, isn't it? I know, because you're dealing with such a massive positive and
pass.
yeah, it's a hard one to score because obviously the family struggled, but he wasn't abusive. We have to point this out. He's
Right.
kind of a dick at times, but he's not slapping his wife around. He's not abusing his kids. He's not killing anyone, and he's writing some of the most important work of all time. The problem is that people are really struggling, and he is kind of a hypocrite because he's dressing up in all of the finement of like an upper middle class intellectual, but his family can't even pay for bread. You know,
Yeah,
that's kind of fucked.
I mean, there's so much just I don't even, it's just so much not
Yeah,
right where it's like, yeah, the idea is there, but you're not executing your own idea,
yeah,
or like your own philosophy isn't, you're not looking at it through yourself too also,
yeah.
man.
You're not applying it to your actual life. And the argument, and this is the argument that idiots will always say, well, if you're such a fan of communism or socialism, why don't you go and fucking live in it? It's like, we don't have a choice. We live in a capitalist world. There is, you can say there are communist states, but, you know, North Korea and like Vietnam is not a communist state, really. We've covered one of the most corrupt people in human history, a Vietnamese businesswoman. So, you know, there is no real version of communism that has existed in the world. Even the versions of communism that did exist were basically dictatorships. There's very little way around that. People died as a result of these horrible leaders. But, you know, we don't live in a time where it's just easy to unplug from society and just fuck off and live in the woods and live a life. Karl Marx, you know, communism isn't a thing yet, and capitalism has only just become a thing. You know, there's the Industrial Revolution 100 years earlier in England, and by this point in time, it's 100 years into capitalism, or the establishment of capitalism. So it's kind of finally becoming a thing. He definitely had options to sort of escape that life, but if he did that, he wouldn't have had access to the British Museum's reading room. So
Yeah.
and that's where he formed a lot of his ideas in this amazing library. So in terms of scoring, it's a really hard one because there's a lot that you can point to in Marx's own life where there are definite deficiencies, but it's nothing too malicious or terrible or evil or bad. But we kind of had to cover him because he's so important in human history. But at the same time, people who his supporters, people who support communism and social change and socialism, they tend to gloss over the fact that he did this shit in his life. They tend to kind of lionize his ideas and ignore the man, you know?
Yeah, but like, wasn't some of his stuff that said though that there had to be violent revolution though?
Oh yeah. And also he kind of contradicts himself. So this is like, you know, the middle class, when the proletariat rise up and wipe out the bourgeoisie, the middle class will be part of that at first, which is like really
Which
fucking
part
menacing. The early part, you know, the lynching of rich people, you know, the killing and seizing of their things and like redistributing it. But once that's over, that you can get the fuck out of the picture.
Yeah,
You know,
but which
it's like,
half of the middle class gets lynched and which half gets to do the lynching?
yeah, exactly. Like,
Like,
because he's talking about the wealth gap, but he's also not talking about the fact that some middle class people in England own factories, but
yeah,
other middle class people,
working them.
kind of like him, couldn't really make ends meet. So
Yeah.
where'd you draw that line?
Yeah, see, and that's the part where I think some of the score goes up is because of the philosophy and strategy and stuff involves saying that it has to be all completely violent.
Yeah, he didn't see, you know, blood. To quote Mussolini, blood alone moves the wheels of history. And what Karl Marx is talking about is you can do all of the fancy peaceful protests all you want, but non-violence is not going to change the world, which is kind of sad because it has, but not in the way that he needed it to. He needed it to be quick and instantaneous
Right.
and permanent change. And for him, the only way to do that was to slaughter all of the rich people.
Yeah, well, and yeah, the only time that actually works is you got to get rid of everybody that's ever going to remember any bad thing or have a bad idea of that you did that.
So Stalin.
Yeah, well, it doesn't work is the point.
Yeah, exactly. You have to get like, oh my god, that person knows. Oh, and also this person who's supposedly my supporter, they still remember that shit, so I'm gonna wipe them out as well.
Yeah, what if
Hitler did it,
their view
Stalin
changes
did it.
over the time? Like, oh man, like we were cool, but what if they change their mind about like, ah, what I did was bad, and then now
Yeah.
I'm bad, and now I got to do them too.
Yeah, better kill them and their families, you know, and their
Yeah,
descendants.
it's a whole thing.
Also,
So,
yeah, that's crazy, really. So go on, carry on. Yeah.
yeah, I don't really know where to score it because the philosophy and idea behind it is that yes, everybody should all have food and not be scared that they're going to starve or not be well off or be oppressed or taken advantage of, so that some people could have things that other people can't have.
Yeah.
Also, oh man, I hate the whole idea of like, if you're lazy, you shouldn't have shit. Because it's like, well, who are you to say that they're lazy? Because I think some of these people that just wander through life and get paid a whole bunch of money to just go to meetings and hang out and do stuff that I would do for free are pretty fucking lazy. So
yeah, all they do is make one big decision, and then they claim they're £8 million or dollars for the year. Like, that's not an effective leadership. That's just one person going, do that. You know, that doesn't mean you're better off than someone who's completely unemployed, who has good ideas. And yeah, you know, a lot of the stuff we talk about, social security, weekends, fucking holidays, all of this comes from like trade unions and unionization. And where do you get unions and unionization? You get them from Marx.
right.
So all of the good shit, social security, free healthcare, all of that shit comes from the people that read Karl Marx's work and influenced politicians. So much good, but also Stalin and Pol Pot and fucking mass deaths and murders, and Chairman Mao and his Great Revolution that killed 60 million people. Like, that comes from Marx as well. He's not responsible for it, but his ideas influence it in the same way that Nietzsche is definitely not responsible for the rise of fascism in Europe and the fact that people misread Thus sprach Zarathustra and thought, oh yeah, we should all be Greek gods. Like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Wait, we're not?
Well, I am. But I've been keeping that one on the DL. Okay. So, but yeah, that's it's hard to score this. But
yeah, so I feel like a 75.
That's fair. I'm actually, listen, I've read a lot about Marx. I've read Kapital, I've read the Communist Manifesto, and I've read 2 biographies about Marx, and I completely agree with that score. I love his ideas, and I love what he was going for. The heart is in the right place. And I completely agree with the providing for people that cannot look after themselves. I agree with the division of labor being more equitable, people being paid more, people not having to worry about life and struggling and getting by. Happiness index is such an important thing in this day and age. But, you know, he was kind of a dick in his choices for his family. He could have made the lives of those around him much more equitable and fair by just taking a weekend job, dude, and not pawning shit all the time. So, you know.
Yeah, man, if he could have kept some of them kids alive, he could have put them down to work. Jeez, they didn't have child labor laws then.
exactly. And I'm sure he didn't write about that. No, I'm joking.
Sorry.
But no, like, could you? And also, like, how cool would it be to be able to say something like the guy who wrote the Communist Manifesto and Das Kapital, and wow, he wrote all 3 versions of that. That's amazing, and it only took him 10 years. Wow, he must have had a good editor. How did he have a good editor? Because he also had a job working down the market. Wow, that's cool. So he was selling stuff to people in London at the same time while practicing political economy. That's cool, but it gave him the opportunity to pay for a good editor, so he got his work out on time, and he wasn't constantly just down the British Museum smoking and drinking and eating fucking fish all the time. Like, there's your solution. Just a basic steady job, and maybe your friend Engels sends you a bit of money so that you can have a holiday. Like, okay, I understand that. That's fine. He just needed one, like, just compromise. Okay, you don't always have to be a fucking journalist. Just compromise your values, and if you can, just like a little steady thing, just a little steady gig, and keep publishing. And I know we've talked about this. We've been like, you can't just move to one thing or another. Sometimes you take those jobs when you can.
Think about this. What if he wrote, some fiction short stories that he sold to places here and there?
That would have been so cool. What if he put his ideas in a fiction story and like disseminated that way? What if he wrote like 3 or 4 fictional stories with some of the ideas that he was then going to put into a grand work? Like that would have, especially in Victorian era England, nobody was doing that. No one was writing fiction and then coming out with the greatest piece of political. I mean, maybe people wouldn't have taken it seriously because, oh, you mean that dude that wrote all that sci-fi shit? No, I'm not reading that. I'm not going to take that seriously. You think he's L. Ron Hubbard?
That's what I'm going to say. I mean, if L. Ron Hubbard can start a religion.
Yeah.
I mean, never mind.
Yeah. I mean, he kind of did.
We're going to get sued now.
Yeah, we're going to get sued by Marxists and right-wingers. So that's Karl Marx. Probably, I mean, there's not really anyone else that can stand up to him. I know people will say, like Homer or Plato or whatever. Like Nietzsche is probably up there, but you can't really deny
Alan Watts.
Yeah. Bill Burr. You can't really deny that he's probably the most influential philosopher of all time. The impact he's had on the world has literally affected billions of people. Not everyone has heard of, Hegel or like, I don't know, like, oh God, I'm trying to pull names out of my head and they've all gone.
That's where you're pulling them out of. Yep.
Yeah. Not the other one. But there are a bunch of philosophers you can name and like maybe 10% of people that went to college will be able to Schrodinger. Like most people will have no idea, like Schrodinger and his cat. Mm-hmm. That people will know that, right? But other than that, that's it. Most people will know of stuff that Karl Marx has helped create because it directly affects their lives.
Yes.
You're unemployed, you get unemployment benefits, Karl Marx. Free healthcare, Karl Marx. Subsidized roads and services and transport and all of that shit, Karl Marx. Cheaper food, better unionization so that you can get higher wages, Karl Marx. Like, there is very few people in human history that have had that kind of influence that continued for 200 years after, he initially came about. So that's Karl Marx. A high mark, I completely agree with it because he's done a lot of good and bad in his life and been responsible for a lot of good and bad in his life. But the impact, and actually I would, even if you're not a fan of Marxism, and listen, Marxism, communism, those are fucking scary words to a lot of people who have been told that, oh my God, communism? Oh my God, the Reds? Fucking Russia? Like, listen, that wasn't true communism. It definitely wasn't Marxism. That was dictatorship and rule by fear and secret police and fucking torture and all that.
Nobody does that anymore.
Nobody does that in the free world. So, listen, if you get an opportunity to read some of the Karl Marx ideas, you won't stray too far from what you're experiencing in the world right now. I guarantee you find some connection. It's not an easy read, so maybe find yourself, there's a bunch of philosophy books called Introduction to that you can read.
Is there an Audible?
I think there is.
There we go.
Yeah. And actually, I think the Communist Manifesto is available for free on basically any platform. You go on YouTube, there'll be a bunch of people reading it. You know, those Vox, what are they called?
I need it
LibreVox?
read to me by Kermit the Frog, though.
Workers of the world unite.
Oh, now I've got to make that happen.
Oh, could you imagine? There's AI.
I've got a project I'm working on later.
Maybe
if you see that come out, I did it.
Maybe Engels could be Miss Piggy.
Oh, buddy.
That's quite the dynamic there, although it's not the dynamic they had. So yeah, that's Karl Marx. Oh, and also I see you've got an epic rap battles of history there.
Oh yeah, I'm going to share that with you. I
okay.
recommend it for anybody listening to check out the epic rap battles of history, Henry Ford versus Karl Marx.
Oh, people are going to be angry because a lot of people gave us hate for the Henry Ford episode.
Honestly, this epic rap battle of history is what made me cover Henry Ford.
Interesting.
And I just thought that it was hilarious and entertaining and educational, and
a good introduction.
It fits perfect now that we've done them both.
Exactly. And also, I feel like if you are going to get into philosophy, there are channels that you can do. So epic rap battles of history, like start with the lighter stuff. There are books like Introduction to, and I think Introduction to Marx was like the first one of those that was published in the 70s. They're like little, very thin, small books as well. They're only like that. They're like little.
That looked really thick. Was
that
from the front angle?
Like that's a literal site. It's like a little pocket, a pocket dictionary, only like maybe 100 pages or something. Okay. And it's like partial illustration as well, so you get explanations, but you also get pictures. So it's really easy to digest. But if you want an introduction, that's the way to do it. And then you can move on to reading something like Kapital, get like a really recent translation, because you're going to get decent language. You're not going to get fucking fancy, swanky English from like fucking Victorian England or anything like that, and people were still trying to hang on to this ridiculous language. But give it a read. You will find it useful. You will find a little bit of peace in there. You're like, oh my god, yeah, he did predict it, and I am undervaluing myself, and actually maybe I should take a stand against these unfair tactics that have been embedded into a system that is exploiting me.
Yes.
We can all identify with that. So have a read. I'm not saying, and to be honest, you just mentioned Henry Ford. I bet the people who fucking hated our Henry Ford episode are going to love this episode. Listen, we're not saying convert yourself to Marxism. That's not what I'm saying at all. I genuinely do try and read from multiple different sources. But if you are struggling in a job where you feel undervalued, or you feel like you're being exploited by the world, or cost of living is too high, or your bills are too high, you feel that companies are making too much money and they're not giving enough back to people, just read some of the stuff that Karl Marx wrote. I guarantee that the things he wrote 200 years ago will probably resonate with you and give you a little bit of peace to realize that the world has been designed like that for the last 250 years. So
yeah.
Anyway,
I still feel like I just work my way out of it, man. Yeah. I can do it.
And to be honest, if all either of us or any of us leave behind the words in this podcast, and if that ever resonates for years and years, and if anyone ever takes anything from it, just like, listen, you're living in a very difficult system to escape, and the best thing you can do, and something that Karl Marx definitely did, even to the detriment of his family, is indulge your passions and escape that way.
Oh, I thought you were going to say drink and smoke yourself to death.
I mean, you can do that too.
Okay.
Just try and ease up on the jellied eels. That shit's horrible.
It sounds so gross.
It's so gross. Oh my god. So that's our show for this week. Thank you all so much. I had a lot of fun writing this, even though I was kind of semi-delirious when I was writing those words.
It was a good one.
Thank you. My temperature was spiking at the time. I was like fucking seeing colors while I was writing it. It was weird. It was like I was on LSD while I was writing that script. Yeah, thank you all so much. And if you want to sling us some money and support us on Patreon so that we can break free of the liberal bourgeoisie system that we've all been living in for the last 250 years, go to patreon.com/history's greatest idiots, where we can exploit your labor by taking $3 from you. And you'll get access to behind the scenes stuff from our lives, where we do visit really cool historic sites and show you our holidays and stuff that we don't share on social media because it's only for you guys. And also, we do monthly exclusive recordings that generally run about 90 minutes. Man, I've got so many things I want to talk to you about next weekend. So much cool shit. My God. And also, you know, scripts from the episodes like this delirious rant that I put together while being really unwell. And also exclusive gifts. We give you stuff for your money, which is actually commensurate to what you pay us. So it's a fairly balanced economy. And also, we're available on Instagram at History's Greatest Idiots. And also, if you want to view our stuff in video format, you can go to YouTube and also Spotify. That's just look for History's Greatest Idiots, and we're right there. You can view all of our stuff there and fall asleep to the dulcet tones of us laughing at idiots.
I'm looking at you right now.
We can see you while you sleep. So until next week, Derek, would you like to say goodbye?
Goodbye, everybody.
And we'll talk to you very soon. Take care now. Bye.